All right, welcome to another episode of the Brett Campbell Show. This will be the last episode for 2020. What a fucking crazy year. I decided to do this episode because I've got a lot of thoughts. If you've been tuning into the episode, you'll know I never lack a thought or two. But I've been pondering. And I've had a number of conversations of late and some questions on podcasts that I've been getting is, what are some lessons from 2020? And it's made me stop and sort of think about it. And I actually spent some time last night creating a list of, the best lessons or the biggest takeaways that I've been able to gather from 2020. And I want to be able to share them with you. But before I do, thank you so much for tuning into this show, and for all of you who have posted on Instagram at Brett Campbell Official. Make sure you tag me in your stories. To the OG listeners who, when Spotify just recently came out with the most listened to podcasts, I noticed you tagged me in yours, and it's an honor to be listened to, especially when I've got so much bloody words to say. So appreciate you. A few mentions there. We've got Ben, we've got Anthony, we've got Michael, we've got Shay, Nick. Lads, actually. I need to get a few more female listeners. If you're a female and you're tuning into this episode, I know you are, start commenting. Add me to your story. All right, so this episode is going to be a little bit different. It's just me riding solo. I'm going to go into another vortex of thinking. I do have some bullet points here to sort of keep me on track. I came up with, I was going to do, like my 5 biggest lessons or my 3 biggest lessons, but the reality is I just can't distill it down into that short of condensed magic. So I think I've got about 15 or 16 here. I'm going to see how I go. This may end up being a 2-parter, or it just might be a longer episode. But I've also started to play with a number of the headlines, right? So I want to have a little bit of fun with it. This is actually me taking some leverage out of Jordan Peterson with his 12 Rules for Life book, just the way in which he was able to create the 12 rules and then go deep on what each rule meant. Jordan Peterson, if you haven't listened to my episodes before, he's been a big inspiration to me over the last couple of years, really indirectly, but challenging the way that I think and I look at things, especially life and my life, and just the complexities of it. So I wanted to have a little bit of fun here. I'm going to hook you in, as a marketer would do, is I'm going to share a couple of the titles, and then I'm just going to get sort of stuck into them, and these are in no particular order. I've got one called Don't Fuck With The Universe, Be a Hero to Yourself, Words Matter, Clean Your Glasses Regularly, this one here, Don't Skimp on Steak and Wine, that's an interesting conversation, Work on Your Tan, and what about this one here, Don't Play Indoor Netball Without Warming Up. Okay, so there's a handful of topics that I'm going to be talking about, but each of them have their own lessons beneath them. Oh, here's another one. An earthquake will reveal what lies beneath. So looking forward to talking about that as well. So I'm going to come out of the gates pretty tough here. And I'm going to start with the lesson, don't fuck with the universe. And I think I'm starting with this because I think this really underpins everything. And it underpins every single rule. And it actually underpins, life as we know it, I truly believe. And it's don't fuck with the universe, and it's this concept that I started talking about very early in the year, and this was pre-COVID, which really enabled me to be able to go through COVID in this time of the year in 2020 and everything that's happened, and I'm going to unpack a bit of that for you. But it's enabled me to go through the year with a very optimistic and very positive mindset and a very strong mindset, which has been very important, especially with all the roles that I play in my life. But it's just, I started breaking it down and talking about it on other podcasts. And someone, and I wish this person would reach out to me. I can't remember who it was. They sort of coined the term, and it was my reconciliation process. So this is how I reconcile life, right? This is how I reconcile things that happen, whether it's a major instance or even a minor instance, but it's my way to be able to reconcile what goes on and be okay with it and not get caught up and hung up in it, and be able to move through as the person that I know I should be and the person that I know I want to be. And it's this concept of everything happened the way it happened because it did. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. Everything happened the way it happened because it did. And I started to elaborate on it a little bit further. So everything happened the way it happened because it did, and there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it. And I've been trying to come to this from so many different angles and break it and pull it apart and go, how can this statement not be true, right? How can I debate this statement so that it's not as viscerally true as I feel it is, right? And I create the connection to that of faith, right? So I'm not a religious person. I guess my God is the universe, if we want to look at it like that. I certainly believe there's something else out there, whatever that is. Got no bloody idea. I've been trying to figure that out, along with all of us, right? But it's this ability to be able to believe in something so fully, fundamentally, wholeheartedly that it is a key driver in helping you just live an amazing life, right? Because that's what I think we're here for. We're here to live an amazing life, and I've sort of become addicted to trying to figure out how we can increase that and how we can make it better, and then how can I help other people make it better, right? So it's this concept of I believe this to be so true, so that when anything happens, so when COVID hit, I was like, holy shit, this is supposed to happen. Like, this is supposed to be here. This is happening the exact way it's happening because it is happening. Right, so real deeply embedded into my own fabric of how I think and feel and look at the world, that it just makes circumstances just seem so small, right? Like, whilst COVID was an absolute clusterfuck of events of everything else that's happened this year, it's been the guiding light for me to be able to really think my way through. So I think I could talk about this topic for an entire episode. So I'm going to try and get through my list here, but don't fuck with the universe. Everything happened the way it happened because it did, and everything is going to happen the way it is going to happen because it is supposed to happen that way. If you can repeat that to yourself 100 times a day, I guarantee you your life will change. You won't sweat the small stuff, and you'll see the big challenges as challenges there that are put in front of you to enable you to grow. Right, because that's what it's there for. Okay, number one. Woo! What do you reckon, teams? That was a bit of a doozy. There's a bit there. All right, so the second one, be a hero to yourself. Be a hero to yourself. This is a pretty deep one as well. I think it's the as a kid, I've always wanted to be like a hero. I want to be that. I've always wanted to, and I don't think it's connected to superheroes, although you could argue it is, because it's deeply embedded in the stories and the narratives of that. But I just like to really help people and see people change for the positive. But before you can do that, is you need to be a hero to yourself and know who you truly are and know what you're really trying to achieve. And this comes back to the concept for me here. The be a hero to yourself is you're more capable than what you actually think you are. Okay, as a human being, you're actually more capable. Look, you've just lived through the craziest time that has ever been around since you've been alive on this planet, right? Now, I'm sure you can debate this, some people, but the reality is 2020 has put out more challenges to most than you would ever hope to have to go through, right? And look, you're still here. You're still listening to this on your mobile phone or in your car or in your shower, wherever you're listening to this. You made it through, right? So you're more capable than what you probably think you are. And the whole COVID situation, where the sort of came out for me was, I remember it vividly, the time where the country was, we're on lockdown. So Queensland went into lockdown here in Australia. And it was literally a week prior to that, we made a decision here at Claxon to break up and work remotely. And that in itself, for a fast-growing business who had just opened offices internationally and had a whole heap of things happening, and a lot of moving parts. It was a really big challenge to make those decisions, and then, making sure that we're looking after our clients, we're looking after our team members, because every team member here has a family. We're going to look after their family. So there's a huge amount of responsibility that you do take on, but it's not until you're faced with these huge monumental efforts sometimes that you realize what you're actually capable of as a human being. And a couple of other lessons here that I'm going to share really sort of speak to that as well. So be a hero to yourself, right? You're more capable than what you really think. The third one, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. That's a Mike Tyson quote there. But I love it because it's so true. Everything's, you're a good boxer. You can be boxing on the boxing pads and you're in the gym working out, and all of a sudden you get a smack in the nose. You're like, well, this is not what I trained for. The pads aren't supposed to hit back. So it's the ability to know that you could be on path, and this sort of feeds back into the previous one with Claxon. We're building the company, lots of things were happening, we're making lots of decisions, we're investing lots of money. So there's a lot on the line. We had opened offices in the States, we're about to open offices in Europe, New Zealand, and then all of a sudden, bow, this worldwide pandemic hits, and all of a sudden, your plans turn to shit. And that's okay though, right? That's okay, because plans change. Simply put, plans change. And you need to be okay with that. And this feeds back to the first one, right? The plan changed because it was supposed to change, and it was supposed to be the way that it was supposed to be. And there's no other way that you can unreconcile that. And if you can, I want to hear from you how you can unreconcile that it happened and there's nothing we can do about it, right? We can learn, and we can devise plans from the past and try and bring them into the present so we can build a better future. But the reality is you still are susceptible to life, to the universe, right? We had plans to travel. I had a couple of holidays planned, and all of a sudden planes don't work. You're like, well, they work, but you're not allowed to go on a plane. You're not allowed to go to another country. I mean, that's unheard of. Like if you had have said to me 12 months ago that there's going to become a time where none of us can fly to any other country, like every country's going to be on lockdown, I'd be like, really? It wouldn't have surprised me, but I'd be like, nah, not during our time. Surely not. We're too far advanced, right? The reality is we're not. So everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Learn to deal with it. Plans change, okay? Number 4, an earthquake will reveal what lies beneath. Oof. An earthquake will reveal what lies beneath. So I've been on record, and I've said this a number of times, and I'm going to say the earthquake for 2020 was everything that really happened, the whole COVID, the lockdowns, the self-isolations, the uncertainty, right? The uncertainty of what's actually going to happen. And I have to put my hand up. I was a little bit naive at the very, very start. I was like, this thing will be over in a month. What are they talking about? I'm sitting here in December recording this podcast, and they've only just started to open up some borders. I mean, that's crazy. But an earthquake will reveal what lies beneath. And for me, I needed COVID to happen, for me personally, for me to get a massive shake-up, right? I was in a position for my health-wise where I was in bad shape. I wasn't in great shape. I'd been the guy for the last 5 years, and you're going to be able to relate to this if you're human, to be perfectly honest. You don't even need to be business-oriented or entrepreneurial or anything. But, I use the excuse of growing a company to put my health on the sideline, right? So I was the guy that I'd do a lot of stop and starts. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go on this diet, or I'm going to train like this now, or I'm going to go and do X, Y, Z. And I'd stop it. I'd start it and I'd go for like 2, 3, 4 weeks, and then I might stop. And then I sort of just got back into my bad habits. I just couldn't find something that worked for me, right? But I needed this shake-up to happen because I was like, wow. I'd looked at literally for me physically, it took for me to look in the mirror and see cellulite on my body that I was like, oh my God, like, Brett, what are you doing? Like, where does this come from? It was almost like I was surprised. I was like, how did this happen, right? And it's not hard to actually track back and go, okay, I can see how that happened. But I needed this earthquake beneath me to realize what actually lied in between all of that, because it gave me time to reflect and focus and go, man, is this how you want to be physically? Is this how you want to show up? I set up a gym on our balcony and I started training, and I'll tell you what, this is sort of a lesson from the lesson is I also had this mindset that because I've always generally been quite fit and I've been training at the gym since I was 16, I'm 37 now. I've been training for 20 years, 22, 23 years, let's call it. And I always had the ability to bounce back pretty quickly, right? So I'd always held on to that belief to be true, that I was like, it's all right. When I really want to make a decision, give me 6 to 10 weeks and I'll be back. I'll be back on board and I'll be in really good shape again. This time it wasn't the case. I've literally been training and I'll talk about some nutrition stuff in a minute, but I've literally been at work, personally working on my body for the last 6-7 months, and it's been hard. It's not as easy as it used to be. I remember hearing my parents talk about as they're getting older, it's like, your body has different plans when it starts to get older, and bloody hell, it's true, right? But sometimes you need these instances to really put you into gear. The one of the biggest ones prior to that was the death of a friend of mine, which really shook up my ability to see, am I actually living life to my full potential, right? Which sent me on this quest, and I wrote a book and plugged to the book called Right Now, right? And that in itself it sort of tells you what it's about. It's, life's too short to be thinking about all these things. We need to start taking action right now. So you can get that book called Right Now, Why Not You and Why Not Now. You can go on Amazon or anywhere where they're selling books. Go check it out. But I needed this shake, right? I needed the shake for me to see the forest from the trees. So number 4 there, an earthquake will reveal what lies beneath. The 5th is the sheep and the farmer. The sheep and the farmer, right? This one became apparent. I don't know about you, but when COVID hit, I watched more news, I think, in the first week or two than I'd probably watched in the last few years. I was glued to news channels. I was like, okay, what's going on? What's happening? Need to try and figure this stuff out. And it got so overwhelming because I felt like I was being a sheep, right? And what I mean by that is I was just listening to what was being said and going, okay, yep, facts. And then as this sort of thing progressed and it became, and like anything in life, there's always an opposing view to something, right? Which is a lesson in itself. That's a sub-lesson. There's always an opposing view. Just know that. There's always a positive to a negative. There's always an up to a down. There's always a right to a left. That's just how the universe works, right? However, I digress. The sheep and the farmer, it's the seek the truth. Don't just follow, okay? You need to take personal responsibility for you to uncover what you believe to be true, okay? And it's not just reading headlines, because that's what started to happen. I was like so exhausted by the news that I just started becoming a bit of a headline reader. And then what we do is we base our worldview off reading headlines. I mean, that in itself is fucking... it's embarrassing for me personally that I actually sometimes allow myself to do that, right? And what we've got to remember, we're living in this media age where headlines sell advertising. And I mean, I know this better than most because we're in this advertising game, so I know how important it is to get someone, to hook someone into the story. I mean, look at what I'm bloody doing here, like with the titles of these lessons. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. An earthquake will reveal what lies beneath. Those are just catchier, more cooler headlines for you to go, okay, now I can connect to that a little bit more, versus going, let's say, be a hero to yourself. It's like you're more capable than what you think. I mean, this is advertising. We live in this world of clickbait, of headlines, and we need to start taking personal responsibility for that and become the farmer and not the sheep. Don't just follow everyone and don't just listen to what someone says as gospel. I mean, heck, fact check everything that I say. And if I'm wrong, come and tell me because I'd like to know. But you got to do it in such a way where you're not trying to create a win, right? You're not there to try and one-upmanship someone. It's the ability for you to be able to take personal responsibility, seek your own truth. You know, there's so much happening right now with the 2020 presidential election over in America, and there's so much. It's a conspiracy theorist playground right now, 2021. But what I've also uncovered is that beneath all of that, there are some conversations that need to be had that aren't being had because they're getting masked by this crazy conspiracy, taking it to the ultimate extremes, that the truth gets diluted somewhere in between that. And I get it. Like, as someone who does a lot of research, I do a lot of reading, I like to form my own opinion, so I'm certainly not just following other sheep or just taking someone's word for gospel. It's hard work to try and figure it out. I literally got exhausted through the presidential election because I followed it quite closely for a number of reasons. And it was quite exhausting because you got one side of the fence saying this viscerally, yes, this happened, and the other side saying, no, this didn't happen. You're like, well, how am I, a human being trying to get on with my life, trying to run a business, trying to have responsibilities, how am I supposed to figure this out? Right? And I totally get it. But, it sort of leads into this a sub lesson once again from this is question everything. Question everything. And I don't think it's, because that can be misconstrued as well. It's like you don't want to question every single thing that comes through your mind's filter, right? But important things you need to ask better questions. When you ask better questions, you can get better answers, and that's how you figure out new things, right? The ability to question everything, and that really just again filters all the way back to seek the truth. Don't just follow. Do your own research. Don't be the sheep. Be the farmer. All right. What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're up to 6. Lesson number 6. This is going to be a hard truth for my fellow entrepreneurs and founders out there and business owners. But it is this: most businesses suck. Okay, most businesses suck. Now, I'm not saying your idea sucks. I'm not saying your product sucks. I'm not saying you suck. What I'm saying is most businesses, so the collective of it. And I came to this realization through COVID and seeing how susceptible many businesses were to the impacts of what was occurring through this period, and also the amount of people who are actually doing something or running a business that they actually don't even want to be running. Like, you could be that person right now. I've had so many conversations through this period where it's like I've literally just asked the business owner, I said, look, do you even want to really be building this business? Do you really want to be building this business back up? Can you see yourself over the next 24 months really building this up, going all in, doing every single thing that you need to do to get this business back up and running? And a lot of the times the answer was, well, not really. And I'm like, well, COVID, the lockdowns, the shutdowns has provided you an opportunity. I could get out of jail free card. Because a lot of people stay in business because they don't want to feel like they've failed, right? They don't want to feel like they're failing. In my view, if you're in a business that you don't want to be in, you've failed already. So sort that shit out pretty quickly. But most business owners who don't want to be in a business, it's like people in a relationship. They'll stay in a relationship for months or years because they're like, I don't want to see my relationship fail. So if you don't like the person anymore, break up with them, separate, go your own ways, right? Same thing in business. If you don't enjoy your business, or you don't like your business, or you don't like your job, hey, it's okay to go and do something else. You haven't failed. You've only failed if you're staying in something that you know truly in your heart that you don't want to be doing. So, I used to sort of tippy-toe around this one, the whole most businesses suck, because it's hard to hear that, shit, my business might suck. So, well, the truth is it might, but that's okay because there's some solutions for it, right? And I'd be a terrible podcast host if I couldn't provide a couple of those here for you right now. So let me do that. There's a couple of I guess, excuse me, nuances or some additions that I think we could quickly add or change the way in which the founder or the business owner is thinking in order to get this business back up and running, or even running in a completely different direction. And it's find the right people for your business, right? Find the right people for your business. This is a shout out to Dan Sullivan. I heard this concept about 3 years ago, and funnily enough, he's just come out with a book based on this topic, and it's game changing when you think about it. And it's who, not how. Okay, who, not how. Go check out the book. I'm halfway through reading the book, but the concept, the title itself, pretty much explains what I'm talking about here. It's like find the who, find the person who can do it. Don't try and figure out how to do it, right? And for me, someone like me who's always been a how type of guy, because I fall into this trap of I love researching, I love figuring it out, and I just like new things because it stimulates my brain. But I also realize there's a faster way of being able to do things, and my priority is faster trumps my desire to know everything. So if there's a faster way where I don't have to know everything, hey, I'm all ears, right? So it's this concept, who, not how. So a lot of businesses right now have the opportunity to go and find a CEO or a general manager who can come into the business and run it better than you could, because maybe you're not the CEO, maybe you're not the general manager, maybe you are just the designer. Maybe you just love designing the clothes or the shoes or the product. Maybe you're the face of the business and you just like to speak on stage, but you don't like running a business, or you don't know how to run a business, or you don't even want to know how to run a business, right? So you got to look at your scenario and go, who could come in, and maybe you might have to give up a part of your business. It's a different thinking. It's a different way of thinking. A lot of startup founders, and this was me, and I'm speaking from my own experience here, at the very starting phase, was I wanted to own the whole thing. I wanted it all. I wanted it to be mine. But the reality is that might not be the best path in order for this thing to reach its full fruition. I remember when I was 16, I walked into the joinery factory, my first ever, or it wasn't my first job, it was my first full-time job. I was a cabinet maker by trade, so kicked out of high school for talking too much. And now I get to have my own bloody podcast and talk about anything I bloody want. How good is that? I love that. Shout out to my teachers. Hopefully one of my teachers is listening to this. If you are, please reach out. I'd love to hear how you're doing. Anyhow, where was I with that? What was I talking about, Tina? Yeah, I went on a big tangent. So most businesses suck. Let's reverse back to that. Finding the thing that you know that you want to be doing with inside your organization. Okay, so you got to find. Here it is. I'm back. Sorry, team. So joinery factory. So my boss in the early days, he said to me when in my first day, there was a guy over in the corner packing up his tools and he was leaving, and I was like, "Oh, what's he doing?" He goes, "Oh, he's going to start his own joinery factory." I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Is there that much work in this town?" Like Huntley was a very small town, like a couple of thousand people. Not a lot of new kitchens being built, that's for sure. I could tell you that. It was all like state housing and government housing and so forth. But he went and started his own. He was going to start his own agency. Oh, not his own agency. His own joinery factory. And my boss said to me, he goes, "Look, one thing I'll give you a lesson," because he said to me, he goes, "It's better to own a small part of something big than a whole part of nothing," right? Which sort of stuck with me because they'd actually given this guy the opportunity to buy into their business and he would have made more money and so forth, but he wanted to go do it by himself. Now, I'm not saying you can't go and do your own thing and follow your own heart and follow your own dreams, but sometimes if your business isn't where it is right now, maybe you need to bring someone in who can help build it and grow it, who's better than you at the tasks, right? And you know what? You might actually end up with more happiness in your life as well. All right, so next one. Clean your glasses regularly. So this is a topic I've been talking about probably for, maybe 2-3 years. And it's the topic of the lenses, okay? I need to get a trademark for this because I need to write a book called Lenses. Remind me to do that. It's been on my list for a long time. But this topic is a great framework to look at life and view life. So clean your glasses regularly, right? And what I mean by that is we need to look at life as though we're wearing different sets of glasses throughout the day. And every time you put on a different set of glasses, you're looking through them through a different set of perspectives, a different set of viewpoints, a different set of rules, a different set of responsibilities. So for example, when I turn up to Klaxon, I have to put my business owner glasses on, right? So I have to make sure my lenses are clear so I can see through them, right? And I need to act in accordance to that of a business owner, right? I need to act in accordance to that of a leader. And then I go, well, what type of attributes, what type of things do I need to be doing, saying, showing up as in order to tick those boxes? When I get home, I need to change my glasses rapidly to that of the husband glasses, right? Because Emily's got a threshold. So Emily, my beautiful wife, she's got a threshold of me talking about business, right? And bless her heart, she'd sit there and listen to it for as long as she needed to. However, I can identify with inside of her when she's sort of tapping out and say, okay, this is not really the most exciting conversation here, because I'm just going off on, like I sort of am here on this podcast, just rambling around. I quite often do that to her. However, I also need to be very, very, very cautious that if I do have my business glasses on when I get home, I need to make sure that my husband glasses are pretty close by. You know, I can't go leave them in the car. I've got to have them close by so I can whip them on, and then I can start being a husband, you know. And the way I speak, the way I communicate, the way I am as a husband is different than I do when I'm here at the office. Now, it doesn't mean I'm a different human being. It just means that there's some slight subtle differences. You know, I'm not walking up to everyone and here going, I love you, and kissing everyone. That would be an HR problem, right? But when I get home, I do that, right? I make sure, because that's one of my key requirements as a husband. I need to make sure I tell my wife I love her. I need to make sure that I assist and I participate in her love language. If you don't know what your partner's love language is, that's another lesson that we should probably add to this list. This list could be a very big list, actually. I've just started to uncover. And I need to, Emily's love language is touch. She loves to be touched, so I've got to make sure I touch her. Just so happens I love to touch her, so it's a great match, right? It's a great match. So clean your glasses regularly. You know, I talk about the 5 lenses in digital growth here at Klaxon, and what it really takes to become a world-class digital growth agency and the ability to produce world-class results, and that's through the 5 lenses, right? The technician, the creative, the copywriter, the strategist, and the business builder. So I've really adopted this philosophy of lenses and looking at every part of life through a different set of lenses, and it's just a really nice practical way. And even sometimes I'll be visually taking these fake glasses off my head and I'll be putting them back on, because sometimes that's the trigger, that's the habitual trigger for me to snap into, okay, what glasses am I putting on right now and why? All right, the next one. What do we got? How many lessons is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're on to 8. Not even halfway through. This could be a big episode. Okay, the next one. Don't play. It's a little bit of a fun one. Don't play indoor netball without warming up. Okay, so we put in an indoor netball team here at Klaxon. Don't go and check the results. Don't go check the leaderboard. Just take my word for it. We are winning. We're on the top. So don't play indoor netball without warming up. So our first game, Daniel, and I know you're listening to this. Daniel's nearing senior citizen age. No, I'm kidding. So Daniel's my business partner here at Klaxon and a long-term friend, and we thought it'd be a great idea to join the team, who are a lot younger than us. And I mean, look, we're not that old. But again, back to my other point around, getting back in shape seems to take a lot longer when you're older. But the first game, Daniel literally just turned around to catch the ball and he tore his Achilles. So we were in the hospital that night. Second game, I start running, and I'm about halfway through the game, and I feel a bit of a strain through my calf muscle. I'm like, oh goodness, this isn't really good. But but I pulled up stumps pretty quickly and hopped off the court because I didn't want to tear it. Tina, actually, she's sitting in the podcast room here, our podcast manager. She actually, I think in the first 20 seconds before even the whistle went off, she strained her quad. So we're a group of invalids, but I don't know how we're still on top of the table. But actually, in case you fact check me, we're not on top of the table, but we turn up with absolute effort. But the underlying components to that is do your diligence prior. There are some things that you need to do prior that to prep yourself to get ready for before you pull the trigger. And this comes from a guy who shoots first and then shoots second and 3 times, and then I might aim. Okay, that's sort of an approach that I have had in life before, but obviously as you get a little bit older and responsibilities start to get more important, you need to do a little bit of aiming first. Okay. And one of those things in particular was I've recently, you would have heard me talk about on other podcasts, and I can't remember what's the name, what number episode have we got? So there was a podcast that I did with Dr. Kevin Stock, episode number 31 of the Brett Campbell Show, okay, called The Carnivore Diet. So as I was training through COVID and I was getting back in shape and I started feeling things happening, I was like, I just need to do something nutritionally, and I'd never really found something nutritionally. And I'd always, it actually took a dinner with a good friend of mine, shout out to Jack Delosa. We were down in Byron Bay, and we just had some amazing steak on the barbecue, and I was just like, you know what, I could eat steak like all the time. And I'd sort of been thinking of other diets, and then I interviewed another person on the Brett Campbell Show prior, which was Travis Bell, episode number 29, where he actually said he'd been on the carnivore diet, and I'd always been interested. I heard it on Joe Rogan's show, and I was like, that'd be an interesting one to do. So this one Sunday night, had a great steak meal, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to do the carnivore diet. So what I did, though, was I actually did my diligence. I read through, I went to several websites, I looked at some ebooks, I got a couple of books from Amazon, and that's where I landed on Dr. Kevin Stock. Just his framework for it seemed really easy and applicable, and it wasn't rigid, right, or stuck in between a really narrow way of viewing things. And that was the biggest issue for me with anything. I'm sure you'd be able to relate to this. The more restrictions I have, the harder it is for me to stay within the lane, right? But if I know what my goal is and I can have flexibility within inside of that, I generally will, 1, stick to it for a lot longer, and 2, be able to get better results, right? So I did my diligence first, and I've never followed anything as accurately or as consistently or happily, that's a big one, than I did with the carnivore diet. So if you're interested in finding out about that, go check out one of those episodes where I talk about that in a lot more detail. Because it really was, for me, it was the ability to do something that really fit with me, right? It might not fit for everyone else, but it just worked, right? Which I'm going to actually jump to a rule here, which is don't skimp on steak and wine, okay? So don't skimp on steak and wine. And what I mean by that is, when my goal with the carnivore diet was to just eat meat, literally it's all I ate. So I'd have some beef patties generally at lunchtime, 4 of them from Betty's Burgers. Yes, shout out to Betty's Burgers. I should really have shares in that joint. But anyway, and I'd have 2 ribeye steaks at dinner. That was generally pretty much what I ate. About 700 grams or so. And I sort of worked my way up. Every so often I add in a little bit of bacon here, and there's flexibility around it, okay? But case in point there's a big difference between budget and quality, okay? And I understand, first and foremost, it comes down to the ability to buy it, right? I'm not sitting here saying you should buy everything top dollar, best of the best, although I think you should try to aim towards that, because why would we not want better steak or better food or better nutrition or better travel or better bedding? So I definitely think that should be a lesson within itself. Always strive for better. But skimping on steak, so I didn't realize the difference really between quality ribeye, fillet, steak, and the stuff I was skimping on at Woolworths. I'd go into Woolies and get a rump steak, and it's like, $20 a kilo, okay, that'll do, right? Because that was the programming I had. I always had the programming as a kid that steak is really expensive, okay? And it pretty much is, so I probably wasn't wrong. But I come from New Zealand where we would have like a whole beast, like a whole beast cut up in the freezer, so we'd never have a shortage of it. In fact, the funniest time I had with that was my mum was away, and she went, I think I might have been about 12, 13. She went away shopping for the day, and she comes back, and she's like, "Oh, have you eaten?" I said, yeah, I had some steak. And she goes, "Oh, what box did you get out of?" I said, "Oh, I got those little round ones. They're quite small, so I had 3 of them." She's like, "That's bloody eye fillet steak. That's like $40 a kilo or something like that." I didn't understand. I thought I was doing her a favour because I wasn't having the big rump steaks, which were huge. But clearly, not all steak is created equally, right? That's really where I'm going with this. And really, the deeper lesson with that that I want to impart on is find your muse, find your thing that you can invest in and treat yourself and buy the best versions of it if you can. Okay. Now I'm sitting here. I got a $15 t-shirt on. I got $20 pair of shorts, and I don't spend a lot of money on clothes, right? So, but I do spend a lot of money on steak and wine. Okay, because there's a very big difference between standard wine and a real good quality wine. Okay, so my point once again is find the areas that you like to spend money on and work on how you can make that better, or how you can spend a little bit more of your money, your time, your effort, your energy on the things that you actually really enjoy. Okay, because there's areas where you can skimp out. Right, and I do it quite a lot in a number of areas. There's just a few key things that I think every human, or that I really want to have. And one of them is, there's a few now, the list is getting a bit longer, but there was originally 3 key areas that I think everyone should invest in, right? Is 1, a comfy bed, right? A really good bed, because you're sleeping in your bed for 8 hours. That's a third of your life, right? If you got a shit bed, you're probably not sleeping in as much, and if you're not getting as much sleep, then you're slowly decaying yourself. But anyway, that's another topic. But point, get a good bed. Also, get a good TV, a big TV, right? For me personally, like, why would you want to watch movies on a 44-inch or a 50-inch when you can have an 88-inch, right? Again, not for everyone, but you'll have your things that you want to be able to invest in. And the third one for me is a car. Like, I am happy to invest in a nice car, and there's a few reasons why. And I was never like this originally. I had a friend who bought a $100,000 Mercedes. I was like, oh my God, why would you do that? What a waste of money. And that was because I'd never spent anything over $10,000 on a car. What a waste of money. And he's like, oh, you'll understand one day. And the first ever purchase I made was actually an SRT Jeep, so V8, 6.4 litre. And something happened when I sat in. I was like, oh my God, this is just amazing. It made me feel like a different person, okay? So it shifted my state. It shifted how I was showing up. It shifted how I felt. Even if I was just driving to work, I just felt differently, which means I showed up differently, which means I acted differently. So those are some 3 key areas that I, love to invest in. But again, happy to go and buy a $10 t-shirt. Not a problem. All right. Geez, that was a big one from Don't Play Indoor Netball Without Warming Up, wasn't it? I think I went into about 7 subcategories. All right. 8 billion reasons. That's another lesson. You got 8 billion reasons. Keep this one nice and short. Basically, find out what works for you. All right? Find out what works for you. Just because it works for old mate down the road or your best friend, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And I revert this back to the carnivore diet, is that the ability for me to find something that just seamlessly worked. I'd never had anything that works so seamless, because I naturally like to fast in the morning, so I don't eat till about 11 o'clock in the morning. and it just worked for me. It just felt good. Just the benefits, right, of finding something that works for you is exactly what you need to do. And it might mean you need to try a number of things, right, which is another lesson. But you've just got to try new things. Hey, if it doesn't work, cool, cull it, let's go to the next one. What's the next thing? Right, and this is coming from someone, I've tried pretty much nearly every diet except for the banana diet. I don't know how that girl ever fucking created that, but anyway, that's a side note. I've tried most diets out there, most ways of eating, calorie counting. I did vegan for about a month after I watched the Netflix doco. Showed the power of the media, I tell you, crying out loud. Now I flipped at 180 and now I'm eating all meat. They'll be after me. But you've got to try new things to find out what works for you, right? Because the 8 billion reasons is simply, there's 8 billion people on the planet and we're all different. No one is exactly the same. There's similarities, there's likenesses, but we're not all the same. So what might work for you might not work for your best friend. And guess what? You and your best friend don't have to bloody wear the same shirt every day or sing the same song or have the favorite color. You can be different. That's what makes you you. All right. The next one, play the long game. I love this. I talk about this a lot. I talk about the long game and the short game because everything from a business perspective, I've really been playing the long game. It's like what I'm doing now is setting me up for 5 years. What I did 5 years ago has set me up for now. And this one in particular, I'm going to convert to how I am now. So what are we? What's the date? This Saturday, myself and Emily, we're going to be 7 months pregnant, right? So another amazing thing, the best thing ever to come out of COVID, obviously, was the fact that I'm going to now be a father. So I've never been excited about anything remotely close than I am to this, right? And there's a reason why, is because I've been playing the long game, right? Ever since I was a kid, I've always seen how I want to be when I'm a father. I've always seen how I want to, what position I'd like to be in when I become a father, the life I want to provide for my family. I've been playing that game since I was 5 years old. When I was 5 years old, my parents split up. The last memory I had of my father was my mother yelling out my name, and I run into the caravan because we lived in a caravan park. And I'm dropping some bombs here pretty quickly, but we lived in a caravan park, and my mother was yelling out my name. I'm like, oh gosh, what have I done? Run into the caravan, and my father's holding her. It was 11 a.m. He'd just gotten back from the pub, and he was about to throw her through the caravan window. That was the last memory of my father. And I said from that day onwards, and as I started to grow as a boy and a young man and to become the man I am today, I've always had this long game in plan, like in mind. And, I get people asking me now going, oh man, you're so lucky to be in the position you are now to be a father. I wish I had that extra time. And I'm like, mate, I'm not fucking lucky. I'm prepared. I've been playing this game for many, many years. I've gotten myself into a position in life where I can decide to be at the ballerina recital, right? Because we're having a little girl, baby girl. I can participate in whatever I want to be. I will be there for whatever I need to be there for, right? I want to have the choice to miss out or not, right? And that's purely because I've been playing the long game. I've been doing this for many, many years. There's so many things that I do in life that is long game oriented in the future. And it's purely because I truly believe that you need to be planting seeds now so that the tree grows in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And for someone like me who in the micro game of life, I don't know too many people as impatient as me. Okay. So in the micro game of life, I don't know many people who are as impatient, meaning I don't like waiting. I like to do things fast. There needs to be an answer now. We need to figure it out. Let's move forward. Let's skip the queue. But the macro game of life is I'm always playing the long game. I know that things that I do today can impact the next few months, right? So very, very important. I want you to be thinking about that going, are you playing the long game? Are you just, again, trying to just get through this game that you're playing right now, day to day? I want you to spend some time, sit there and think about what are you doing that's going to be able to reap the rewards in 12 months, 24 months, right? Think about that. So, so important. So when March comes around, when it's time to be a dad, I'm going to be more than ready. You know, I've heard every story, right? The old, make sure you get your sleep. Your life's going to change. No shit, of course it's going to change. I'm going to have a little baby that can't move, that I need to look after, that's depending fully on me. I know what I'm walking into, right? I'm prepared. I know what I'm walking into. This isn't a surprise. I know babies cry, and I know babies need to be fed every 2 to 3 hours. Guess what? I can't wait to not sleep, right? And that's because I'm looking at life through a different lens. I'm looking at it through the lens, one, of optimism. I'm looking at it through the lens of there's no greater reward, I think, for a human being, in my view right now with the way I feel, than to be able to bring another human being into this life and help shape who they are, right? And not shape, help support them shape themselves, okay? Very, very important distinction there. So start playing the long game. All right. Whee! We're doing well. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7 or 8 left. Build your castle. Build your castle. In my book right now, Why Not You and Why Not Now, I talk about a 4-step framework: discover, design, develop, and deliver. And that really is a framework to build an amazing life, I truly believe. And the second phase there is design, right? So there's a number of areas that once you uncover where you are in life, the discovery phase, where you want to go, then we need to design the life that you want to be living. Right? One of those areas that we need to design is that of your environment. So designing the environment that you're showing up in every single day, designing the life that you are wanting to live. You know, and in this case, building your castle is the reason why, again, I feel so blessed and fortunate through COVID was I actually secretly really loved the lockdowns. You know, I live in an apartment looking over the beach, on the beachfront here in the Gold Coast. And I am doing that and I'm sharing this to impress you. Let's be perfectly honest. I've fucking worked hard to get where I am. And I think this thing of people saying, oh, stop showboating or stop doing this, it's like, man, you don't know what's going on. Like, I think it's amazing that you should be able to celebrate what you do and what you've got and what you've earned and how hard you've worked for it. So through that whole COVID period, I actually really enjoyed being able to be locked in my home because, right, I had built and designed my environment. So anywhere I moved to, I designed my environment. Okay. And you might be going, oh, but we can't live on the beach in an apartment. Cool. Even if I lived in a 1-bedroom shack in the middle of bloody Benogan, I would design it to, as much as I possibly could, to uplift my surroundings, to uplift my energy, to uplift my positivity, because you can do that. It's literally, even to the point where it's like, maybe go and put a different color paint on the wall. Go and get some plants inside your house. So when we run the Unleash Your Greatness workshops, which ties into the book right now, you know, one of the exercises that we go through and workshops is looking at your house that you currently live in and go, okay, what changes could I make here that could actually drastically improve it? You know, I had people going home from the workshop, coming back, going, oh my God, me and my wife like totally transformed the house. We changed this here, even by moving the cupboard from here to there, or, you know, we got a new lampshade. We got some aromatherapy oils diffusing through the house all the time. And those things make a big difference. So you need to design and build your own castle, right? Because imagine if you had have done that prior to COVID and you were in lockdown. That's called the long game, my people. Like that's the long game, right? In full force. The ability for you to be intentional with what you're wanting and what you're doing in life. When things like this happen, you might be a little bit more prepared. So building your castle is a really, really important one. Funnily enough, where we live, the property that we own prior to where we are now, was we went to Bora Bora about 3 years ago on a holiday, and we went on a jet ski ride. It was sort of my first real free-for-all jet ski ride experience, and I absolutely loved it. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I was like, okay, so I want a jet ski. And then I was like, well, if you have a jet ski, Brett, it has to literally be on the water, because you're not going to put it on a trailer and drive it to the jetty and this, because I know it would just sit there, right? So I was like, okay, so I need a house on the water. So I made it a goal to go and buy a house on the water, right? Now, I'm not suggesting because you want a jet ski, go and buy a house on the water. But if the goal means something to you and you really want to do that, then go and do it. Work a plan out around it, right? Work the plan out around it. That's the most important part that I can share here. I wanted a change of lifestyle. We were sort of living out in suburbia there, and it was a nice lifestyle for my motorbike. I could ride around the hills, but I was like, okay, I want a different lifestyle now. So I wanted a jet ski lifestyle, right? So I designed what that would look like. And then I wanted a beach lifestyle. So the ability for you to be able to be intentional of what you want and then actually start laying seeds out there to make things happen, you'll be surprised how fast you can actually make it happen. Me and Emily were at breakfast with a couple of friends, and we're literally sitting down and we're like, yeah, we've been thinking about it probably for the last couple of weeks that we'd actually like to move to the beach, and it'd be quite nice. I'd like to know what it sort of feels like to live on the beach, because I've always wanted that as a little kid. It's something to sort of tick off, part of my bucket list. And so what we did was we looked on realestate.com, and Emily found a couple of places. That afternoon we went and looked at one, and the next day I'd already put in an application for the property. Now, here's what you don't know about this. We were living in a home that we needed to rent out. We needed to sort out so many other things. There were so many things that you might say I was being quite bullish in my decision to put in an application, but I was like, you know what? Let's just trust the universe. It'll figure itself out. So sometimes you got to put yourself into a little bit of turmoil to have these things work out. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some pressure moments. There's some pressure conversations. I was like, oh my God, what if we don't find a tenant? What if this happens? What if that happens? But I'll tell you what wouldn't have happened is we never would have moved to the beach if I didn't make that decision when many things were pointing in the opposite direction to making that decision. Most people would have gone, we need to go and talk to someone else first to see if we could actually rent that house out, and we can find out how much we can get for rent. Then we'll need to look at this and we'll need to look at that. And I'm like, you know what, let's just make the decision. The question I asked myself was, do we really want to live on the beach? And the answer was yes. I was like, let's figure it out. Okay. Let's figure it out, which leads me to my next lesson. Okay. Which is called work on your tan. Work on your tan, something that's popped up for me, and this is obviously from being able to live at the beach, but you don't need to live at the beach for this to happen. You just need the sun, okay? Aside from all of the major physiological benefits, the sun provides vitamin D, fights diseases, it's linked to reduced depression, anxiety, even some conversations around it helps kill COVID, over a certain heat temperature, etc. But it's the ability for you to actually feel good, right? I've noticed that because I live on the beach. Literally this morning at 6 a.m. And again, you don't need the beach here. My point is, for me, I clearly needed the beach in order for this to be a part of the lifestyle, because I probably would have felt weird at home going out into my backyard. I don't know, that's just me, right? But the benefits of how you feel internally of having a darker tanned shade of skin, for me personally, is unbelievable. One, people talk about it, which makes you feel nice and fluffy, right? Let's be honest, we all like a little bit of praise. But number two, I didn't realize how good a tan was. It literally takes 10 kilos off you. Like, it really does. But my point there is you need to get outside more. Let's get outside more. Let's start bloody enjoying the weather that we have around us. Hopefully, if you're tuning into this, and I know I'm coming from a biased place, we live in here in Gold Coast where it's pretty much summer all year round. But working on your tan, it's going to force you to get outside, okay? Which leads me to this next lesson here, okay? Very, very important lesson. And it's one that is going to heat up really, really big, pardon the pun. But it's going to heat up big time moving into 2021 and especially 2022. And the lesson is, you are addicted to your phone. Okay, you're addicted to your phone. You need to start paying attention to the effects that your mobile phone is having on you. Right, whether you know it or not. I know you know it because you're a smart person, because you wouldn't be an hour or so into this podcast still listening. If you weren't, you would have checked out a long time ago. But if you are listening to this and you're scrolling through your Instagram or Facebook, man, listen on up, because this is definitely for you. And it's the realization, first and foremost, that you actually have a problem, right? That's the first step in any 12 steps program is, admit that, hey, hi, I'm Brett, I'm an alcoholic, or hi, I'm Brett, I'm addicted to my phone. And not laugh it off like it's a funny bloody thing. It's like it's actually a mental disease, I feel. Right, where we're so addicted to the dopamine drip that's happening chemically in our brain that our phone is just literally an extension of us as a human being. Like, people have anxiety when they don't even know where their phone is. Like, bloody hell. And look, I'm not sitting there all high and mighty. I've been through that, and I'm still addicted to my phone, right? I don't think I'm as addicted remotely close to many people. However, there's still elements where I pay way too much attention to my phone. And I thought it was social media, right? I thought it was social media. But it's not Facebook's fault. It's not Instagram's fault. It's not LinkedIn's fault, TikTok's fault, Snapchat's fault, any of the other apps. It's the actual phone itself. Because here's what I uncovered. I deleted my apps. And then I'm in the AFR reading news stories. Then I'm in another news story app, and I'm just seeking something on my phone, right? So it's, whilst the social media apps come into play and there's a realness around this, there's a reason why Apple have come out with on their main screen now in the newest edition, showing you your hours and the time spent on your phone, on your apps. It ain't there to impress you, right? It's not there to show you how cool you are with how much time you've spent. It's there to go, we're doing what we sort of can to get under government regulation to, hey, look like we're playing a fair act here, whilst we know fundamentally, wholeheartedly, that we're addicting you to this worse than crack cocaine. Like, I'm telling you, it's unbelievably bad for us. Think about it. When you go out, when you go to dinner with your partner, when you're hanging out with friends, if you're on your phone, man, you need to check in with yourself and go, wow, I've met up with a friend for coffee, and I'm sitting here talking to no one. I'm scrolling through a Facebook newsfeed whilst they're sort of sitting there sipping their coffee too. Like, we just need to start paying attention to the effects of it, right? I mean, I can't talk about that one enough, but you need to look at it and start setting parameters around. And for some, it's tough, man. Like, you can get apps and you can go, okay, I get reminders on my phone. I'm like, okay, I'm going to set 15 minutes for Instagram. And when 15 minutes is up for the day, I get a note saying it locks me out of the app. But it also gives me an option to go, are you sure? And I'm like, no, give me another 15. How bad's that? I might as well just totally get rid of the reminders and just have a free-for-all, right? But my point there is, you're addicted to your phone. You need to do something about it. And more so, pay attention to the effects. I've got a rule right now, and that I'm going to work so hard to live by, is that when I'm with my children, I am not on my phone. I'm not on my phone. My attention is with them. My attention is with my wife. My attention is with me and my surroundings and what's going on. And look, I'm not perfect. I mean, who knows what's really going to happen, right? But all you can do first and foremost is set the intent, okay? Set the intent around this being the reality, okay? Because if you don't, you're going to miss out. And you're going to regret it. I feel that there's going to be regret from time spent on your phone and not in the moment, okay? All right, couple more before we wrap this up. I think I've definitely gone over our podcast booking time here. But hey, when you have the show and it's your show, you can sort of do that. Two more. I've got two more for you. All right. This one. You never know where the path might be leading you to. You never know where the path might be leading to. Where you think it's taking you to may be the exact opposite of where it's taking you. And I want to share a story around that. And this is very current right now. You may have heard of this yet, or maybe you haven't. But the company Slack, Okay, there's a company called Slack, and it's basically an internal messaging service where a lot of businesses have been using it in the last couple of years to communicate internally with their team. So you can create a chat channel in multiple different channels, and you could talk about different things, different departments. And Slack, the story of Slack is quite an interesting one. So the founders of Slack, they actually, prior to Slack, they owned a gaming company. So they would create mobile applications, so games for mobiles. And what they realized as they were doing that and creating that, they were all working remotely. They needed an internal chat system to be able to communicate by. And that's where version 1 of Slack was created, right? So this company set out to build the next billion-dollar gaming company. They went on a bit of a internal sidestep and created something else to use as internal capabilities to communicate, which then actually became something bigger. They called it Slack, and now Slack just got purchased by Salesforce for $27 billion. That's US dollars as well. So that's about 1 trillion Australian almost. No, it's not. It's about 40 billion. Think about that. You never know where the path might be leading you to. When the Slack founders sat down to create their mobile app game, they could have looked at that, oh my God, we've failed. This isn't working. Yet a few years later, they get acquired for $27 billion. They would never have thought, they could never have predicted that they were going to create this internal chat system that would take the world by storm and then get acquired, right? So just know that the path you're on is the path that you are on right now, and you should be on it because there's no other path for you to be on, or else you'd be on it, right? Bit of a mind bender. Back to the first one, don't fuck with the universe. But also be okay that it might be leading you to a different destination to what you currently think is the destination, but it doesn't mean it's the wrong destination, it's the right destination, because that's exactly where you are ending up, and there's nothing you can do about it. How about that? How about that, cookie? And the last one to wrap this episode up, I don't know about you, but I've had a lot of fun actually talking about these things. It's embedded a lot more for me as well. But this one is called Breathe. Breathe. Geez, I came out of the gates pretty tough with that. Breathe, right? I've been doing, and this is a shout out to Wim Hof. Crazy. I don't want to get this wrong. I feel like saying Norwegian, but I don't. Swedish, maybe Swedish. He's a very interesting human being anyhow, but super intelligent, and he's created this breathing technique and breathing concept that literally he's broken 26 world records with breath holding and immersion under ice, and just the capability to be able to get his body to do things that people thought, scientists thought, doctors thought were physically impossible. And it all starts with breathing. Breathing can change your life, because if you're not breathing, you ain't got no life. But your ability to change your breath and change the way in which you breathe, and the ability to bring your body to an alkaline state. Even last night, I was doing this breathing technique, and I committed to it. And then I went to sleep and I woke up, and I literally said to Emily this morning, I was like, I've had the best sleep last night that I've had literally in probably months. And I was like, why? I wasn't knocked out from a big night out of on the Terps. And I was like, oh, that's right, I did the breathing. I literally did like 3 minutes worth of breathing. And the physiological benefits it was unbelievable. And the more you study, the more you deepen your understanding and awareness around breath and the power of it and its simplicity. And that's the biggest caveat here, is it's so simple that it's so it's so misguided and misunderstood because of its simplicity. We live in this world where we complicate everything. We make things harder than what it's supposed to be. When the reality is, you just need to, if you can learn how to breathe properly and change your internal chemical systems based off just breathing. I mean, why would you not even want to explore that? Like, who would not want to learn how to breathe better? Who would not want to learn how to fight disease through breathing. Like literally, the studies and the work coming out of this breath work is unbelievable. So breathe. Well, there we go. That's a list. That's a list of my lessons from 2020. I hope they've been insightful or valuable to you. I would love to know what lesson sort of stuck out the most for you. I'd love to get your feedback. I'd love for you to hit me in the DMs or upload an image of you listening to this on Instagram and write the number. Well, you're not going to know the number because these aren't numbered, but write the lesson. I want to know. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your story, how it's impacted you throughout the year as well. Oh, actually, there's one more. Last but not least, I forgot about this one. How could I forget about that? And it's I love you, right? So it's I love you. And that lesson is you need to start letting people know how much you love them and how much you actually care about them. This, if anything came out of 2020, is perspective and hopefully gratitude and the realization that you can have a loved one taken away from you, whether that's at death or just you just can't see them, you physically can't go and see them. Like I haven't seen my family this year. But you can still let them know how much they mean to you, and you can still let them know how much you care, right? And whilst they are words, and love has many layers, and it doesn't even, if you're not a I love you type of person, it could literally be, hey, look, I just want to let you know how much you mean to me, how much I really care about you. However the words mean to you, however you want to phrase it, I highly encourage you to do that and be more giving and more forthcoming with that. And it's very vulnerable, right? It's very tough. Like for me, I didn't necessarily come from a family that expressed a lot of love, right? We didn't express it in a way that it was like, I'd go to some of my friends' houses and you could tell their mother thought the sun shined out of their ass, right? It's like, in a good way, of course, but it was like you could see different types of love and affection and caring, and for me it was very rare for us to express how much each other means to each other, which is again another reason why I take it upon myself to make sure that I do that as often as I frequently can, because I really think it means something. Like it really does. We're humans and we can communicate, and we have feelings for a reason, right? We have feelings for a reason. I think we can start amplifying some of these feelings by paying attention and giving it intention to let someone know that you really care about them. And, on that note, I really do appreciate you listening to this podcast and commenting. And, it is an absolute honor to know that people are listening and gaining value and generating insights. But what's even more exciting is that I know you'll go out and you'll talk to someone else, and you might share this with someone else, or you might have a friend who's having a tough time, and next minute you pull out the look, you got to be a hero to yourself, and here's why, and blah, blah, like it really is, a huge thing for me personally, because at the end of the day, I know my highest value at the end of the day is the ability to be able to contribute beyond myself, and this is just one avenue that's enabled me to do that. So on that note, really appreciate you for tuning in, and thank you for listening. Can't wait to be back in 2021. Got a few exciting things in store there, so stay tuned, and let's end it on that. Thank you so much. Take care. Have an amazing Christmas holidays and New Year, and I'll be back.